Everybody, and welcome back to another video. I'm your host Oti, and welcome back to another review of Hetty Feather, and this time we're advancing into Series 5. So as this is a new series, we won't have a recap of the last episode, and we're going to dive right in. Although the opening moments of the episode are very much a recap of the events of the last series. We open the episode with finding out that the Calenders are away in Europe. Sorry, I mean the Trench Crusade world. Sorry, I mean Europe, Stan. Sorry, 1984 world. So, most of the staff decide to have fun as the boys play football and Lizzie plays tag. Agnes, however, is still at work and stresses about the Calenders returning the very next day. So she storms up and calls everyone's name to remind them that the Calenders are returning tomorrow. After the title sequence, Agnes puts a stop to Jack asking Hetty out for another walk. She then orders everybody inside, but Sheila is also missing, as the question is raised if anybody else is working or not. So what's she doing? Well, we cut to Sheila in Emily's room doing a Get Ready With Me TikTok while singing "The boy I love is up there in the gallery." Can you imagine her doing one of those videos? So, I'm going on this date with this, hot army sergeant who's from Newcastle. And, the best thing is, I'm faking to be someone else. No one is ever going to know, and we're going to get married, and we're going to do everything that couples do, like hold hands in the fields and dance around daisies and shit. Well, back outside, the staff suspect that she's been up to something, as she's been sighted in Emily's room and has been sneaking around. So, Agnes and Hetty decide to investigate, meaning the title character's romantic walk with Jack is off. Back to Get Ready With Me, Sheila, as she sorts through Emily's outfits and picks the dress from the party in the last series. Instead of playing detective, Agnes decides to sort out the pantry as Gideon listens to her list the jobs that Sheila was meant to do, but cannot, as, according to Gideon, she was sloping off through the East Gate. Agnes is told that she deserves to have some fun and that she's worth more than just a skivvy. She repays this with a compliment, as Gideon knows how to make her feel better, before being asked if Sheila is stepping out. Well, she's doing a Get Ready With Me, so yes. Agnes thinks that she feels left out with Jack and Hetty now a couple, and apparently, so are her and Gideon. This probably happened off screen, but it was heavily hinted in the last series. Gideon says that not everything is about romance, after Agnes claims that she would do the same, and that she would wait and see immediately before kissing Gideon on the cheek and going outside to meet up with Hetty. So the plan is simple. Agnes and Hetty will both cover for separate gates to see who will capture Sheila first. Well, when I say capture, I mean interrogate her. A few minutes later, Sheila is caught out by Agnes, and she says that she was just trying Emily's clothes on. I know you're lying, Sheila. I saw it on your TikTok. You follow me on TikTok? Don't look at the other things I've said. I really didn't mean to say that about Nigel Farage. Meanwhile, at the other side, Hetty meets with a private with a Geordie accent. His name is Wilfred Sturges, but we'll call him Private Geordie Shaw. He is on the lookout for Miss Emily, whom he met at the Hampstead Fair. So, Hetty realises what's going on and decides to set up a fake date by directing him into the main hall for high tea with Miss Emily. A few seconds later, Sheila then comes along calling for her sweetheart. Hetty then goes back to tell Lizzie and Agnes about Private Geordie Shaw and how charming he is, Sheila impersonating Emily, and that they now need to set up a tea date. And as you'd expect, both Lizzie and Agnes are really excited to see what he's like. This sounds like something you'd see in a reality TV show. Private Geordie Shaw approaches the front door and meets Jack and Gideon. He asks to see fake Emily, but Agnes barges the gentleman out of the way and is, of course, swooned over by his charm. Saying that she was told by Hetty of his arrival, who is then described as lovely, earning a cheeky comment by Jack, and is guided into the main hall. The boys obviously then find out that this is a con, as the real Emily is away in Switzerland at the minute. We go inside and see Private Geordie Shaw sitting down and given Emily's favourite drink, lemonade. The girls then simp over him before Lizzie is sent away awkwardly. And Agnes reminds him that Emily wants to be a doctor, which, according to Wilf, she has stated several times over. In the other room, Hetty gives Lizzie the tea tray and asks if he's charming her yet, which makes her laugh and Jack make a bantery comment. The only thing that Hetty's missing from this is fake Emily, so she goes off to fetch the prank victim. But Jack and Gideon then agree to keep an eye on him in case he steals their respective young ladies. Back in the main hall, Private Geordie Shaw tells Agnes about fake Emily's interest in baking, which is actually Sheila's interests. She pretends to be surprised at this and prompts Lizzie to agree, who is busy gazing at him, and then she leaves the room smirking. Jack and Gideon then bring in a ladder, using this moment as an excuse to measure up for curtains and just to be nosy. Outside, Sheila runs into Hetty, thinking that she was stood up, but she is taken inside to meet her beau, which is basically another word for lover. So now Sheila, impersonating Emily, eventually meets up with Private Geordie Shaw for tea. He's been told a lot about her, which is being used as a way to try and sabotage the date, and the staff are dismissed. But Sheila is antagonised more by everyone offering to pour her tea and to butter her scone, which hilariously makes her snap. So everyone then endorses this humorous moment by walking out feeling like their plan is coming together. Hetty then tells Lizzie to prepare more tea. They then make a joke about Sheila impersonating Emily until the feel-good light-heartedness is stopped by the sound of a horse and cart. So almost all the staff go outside to see who has arrived, and eventually they see that it is Jinder Mahal. Right, it's not Jinder Mahal, it's actually a child. Right. But if it was Jinder Mahal, they'd all be screwed over. It would be even funny if he was accompanied by Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. All of a sudden, Hulk Hogan makes the show about him, so instead of Hetty Feather, it's Hogan Feather. The Indian child has come from a ship and gives Agnes a letter informing them of his status as a Maharaja, and he wishes to be known as Ashok. Ashok then clicks his fingers, prompting for Jack and Gideon to get his luggage. You could say this is a shock to the system. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Back to the date now. Fake Emily tells Private Geordie Shaw not to believe what the staff have been saying. However, Private Geordie Shaw sees through the lies and thinks that she is amazing just the way she is. And when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while. 'Cause girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. The way you are. Yeah, why am I singing Bruno Mars? Meanwhile, Hetty apologises to Ashok, who greets Lizzie unexpectedly, thinking that Sheila's tea is for him. Unaware of the last scene, she tells him that it's for Emily. So now he will be taking tea with her, as Ashok then orders the servants to take his case up. Agnes and Hetty in the background plan to warn Sheila. Ashok then specifically instructs Jack to carry his valise, which is a small suitcase, up separately, and it must not be opened under any circumstances. Hetty walks in to inform Sheila, who has now given up the fake Emily act upon their visitor's arrival. She then claims that the visitor is Private Geordie Shaw, but is told that it is a prince instead, which immediately makes her stand up and leave the table, only to see that it is Ashok, who is under the impression that he is talking to Emily. Sheila then makes a very questionable line by saying that he's not the marrying type. Seriously, there was no need for this line whatsoever. It just sounds incredibly creepy, especially if the prince is a child. But this is the BBC and they're used to protecting people like that. And if the genders were swapped, it would be a very different story. Whoever wrote this episode needs to take a seat with Chris Hansen. Anywho, Private Geordie Shaw then takes his leave as Sheila reminds him of their next encounter at the East Gate, which will be happening the next day. However, he thanks Agnes for the tea, which puts Sheila off a bit. Ashok, meanwhile, says that he is here to be educated in the UK, innit, bruv? As Agnes whispers whether this day can get any worse or not. Well, it can, as we see Lizzie witness a returning Rosamond seeing Private Geordie Shaw leave the building, asking who that is. Back in the hall, Agnes explains that his governess was English and that she taught him and his grandfather, who learnt about Calendar Hall from an elder Calendar. He decrees that he will now learn from, in his mind, Emily. Lizzie then asks for everybody's attention as well as bearing tea, but she is ordered to plump up Ashok's cushion and pull up a chair. She is then branded a small child while trying to disperse for the situation. This then escalates as Sheila defends Lizzie over her status as a servant, but Ashok says the name of a servant doesn't mean anything to him, and Sheila's temper eventually boils over as the argument progresses. Eventually, she puts a scone in his face, as both parties are restrained. Sheila then exclaims that there won't be any of this in her house, but just then we hear Rosamond's voice calling her Sheila, which exposes to the prince the staff's supposed prank. A little later, Hetty listens in to disciplinary action being taken as Ashok explains Sheila's actions to Rosamond, including entertaining Private Geordie Shaw whilst pretending to be Emily. Rosamond says that this tarnishes her family's reputation as well as Emily's. And then Sheila immediately goes off of the rails, talking about how Private Geordie Shaw is her sweetheart and she borrowed the dress for the Hampstead Fair where she met him. This, however, doesn't account for what she did, thus, you're fired! You're fired. You're fired. But she resigns anyway because she loves Wilf so much and then she wants to marry him. Yep. She wants to... Yeah. Before she gets too close to the door, she looks back indecisively before walking out to hear what Hetty has to say on the situation, and she gets blamed for this mess. Both of them then proclaim that they won't miss each other with a bit of sadness in their voice. Outside, Jack prepares to tidy up the gardens as most of the calendars are back, as Gideon had no idea what's happening. Jack knows about this because he saw Lizzie picking up flowers for Sheila because she is now getting married. Gideon's reaction to this is anyone's reaction being, what? We go down to the kitchen as Sheila gets ready to leave as she is given food from Agnes, but she says she doesn't need it as an army marches on its empty stomach or something like that. And then she continues to fantasise about her life with Wilf. Hetty reminds her about her dreams of being a cook, but she is naive about this. Back to Gideon now, who reflects that Calendar Hall won't be the same without Sheila. But Jack then says that their loss is Private Geordie Shaw's gain, thinking that he's the settling down type. This makes Gideon wonder if this is what Agnes wants as well. But Jack turns this into a joke about her cooking. Apparently, Lizzie also told him that they are also looking for a new butler and is asked over the importance of Ashok's valise, which isn't known at this time, and it's just a suitcase that Jack nearly got fired over. Rosamond recounts to Ashok that his father was a complicated man, and she and George are now his guardians. Ashok calls the gesture to pay for his education generous, and he will be having Emily's room, which I think she won't be too happy about. The staff will also serve him in the manner he is used to, and apparently he left his mother and sisters to be here, as the Calenders owe him a debt. Rosamond then goes to attend baby William and moaning by Constance as she calls this unfair because now Sheila is leaving. And apparently she's leaving in about a few minutes, so she rushes out to witness that. We then go to outside as Sheila's departure is witnessed by the main cast, and Constance calls her the best worst nursery maid that she has ever had. Her farewell to Hetty is one of arrogance, as she is offered help if needed, but according to her, she'll be married to Wilf, so she won't need Hetty, and they both hug briefly. This action prompts Agnes to talk about marriage and how she likes the sound of wedding bells. Lizzie then gives Sheila her flowers, and she refuses to say goodbye to Hetty as she walks off into the distance. There is some slight concern from Jack, but not so much from Hetty. The staff then proceed to get back to work as Hetty is asked for a walk, but she says that Ashok will keep everyone busy. Jack, however, thinks that they'll find a way. Hetty's closing thoughts are on how Ashok's arrival and Sheila's departures have both been a surprise, as we cut to Lizzie and Agnes peeling late at night. Hetty thinks that Ashok is hiding something, as the episode ends with her getting dismissed by the prince, who then looks inside his valise, as far bigger secrets are about to be unearthed. And we finish the episode with Hetty outside writing her journal, claiming that their next big adventure is about to begin. I do think they need to use this shot in the title sequence from now on, because this represents the Calendar Hall phase of the show, whereas the one that's already used represents the Foundling Hospital phase, and really, we're way past that now, and this represents this era much better. So, my initial thoughts on this episode are, despite the good comedy value, and to be honest, it does have a light-hearted tone to it in some places, i.e. the dinner date, and it's really funny to see Sheila almost getting humiliated publicly and in front of a guy that she's trying to impress. It's a good demonstration as to how this show throws logic out of the window. So, if Ashok was coming, wouldn't Rosamond have sent a letter in advance? I mean, well in advance, because we're in the late 1800s here, and I get that the post doesn't arrive fast, but a little warning would have been nice, you know, in case they're in the middle of something fun, like the dinner date. And speaking of the dinner date, so if Sheila was told off by Rosamond, then why didn't she tell everyone that she was set up by Hetty? That way everyone else could have been told off and, hey, like her, probably had the sack. I mean, if Sheila has consequences, then why can't everyone else? You know? Could be a group punishment. I know that they can't afford to sack everyone, but at least a form of punishment would be nice. And then as for Sheila's actions herself, why? I mean, look, I get that she wants a guy, but do you really have to impersonate your superior? I mean, if Emily found out, and she probably will eventually, either she would be jealous or livid because she wishes that it was her instead. And then her departure is extremely rushed. I think she should have had at least one more argument with Hetty, so it could be bittersweet for everyone, so that they could leave on the most sour of terms, and at least acknowledge their history together, because this episode, I feel, doesn't do that. And yes, and I acknowledge that they both did cry a bit during the confrontation where Sheila's just been fired, but they could have had more oomph to it. You know, these two characters have a great history with one another, and it would have been much more respectful and bittersweet had they have had one more argument and left on really bad terms, so that everything comes full circle. And then we have Ashok, who I feel, for first impressions, I feel as though he's a stereotypical child prince, and an absolute spoilt brat at that as well. I do think they should have gave him an Indian accent, because, you know, he's just come to Britain, and I feel as though that would have given the character more uniqueness. The kid's just so smug with everything, and the way he just says it makes him so hateable. Now, I do admit that I found some parts in this episode funny. I did like the first half when they set Sheila up on this date with Wilfred Sturgis. I like Wilf's character as well. I like how all the girls simp for him while Jack and Gideon are visibly concerned about what's going to happen. I like that Lizzie gets more lines as well, and that Agnes was the only one working while everyone else was outside having fun. I'm starting to get a bit more respect for the character as well, and that's also because of her sense of humour, and everything is well timed with everybody. I like how most of the calendar cast is away, and it just leaves the adolescent actors, you know, to do their own thing, to take up most of the episode. And I like how it goes from light-hearted comedy, and then it takes a turn for the worst. But then again, the lack of logic really lets this episode down. Finally, I'm sad that Sheila's gone. I really liked her character. I found her to be better than Hetty in some places, and I think that Polly Allen was the right choice to play Sheila. And she's one of the positive changes that they made to the TV show, because in the books, Sheila Mayhew is your generic Draco Malfoy character. But in the show, they actually put effort into what they needed from Sheila Ormsby. So, for instance, they give her character development, and that adds into her chemistry with Hetty. And every episode I've watched, I've looked forward to seeing what more can we get from Sheila. A lot has happened to her character, so things like meeting Hetty for the first time and bullying her and having her hair cut short. Meeting Blanche, Monica dying, and then the grief afterwards. Helping to expose Matron Bottomley's plan to raise money to go to America. And then going to Calendar Hall with Hetty being most displeased about it. Working with Mrs. Whittock. And then nearly having a love affair with Gideon. And now Wilf. And then her final departure being quite unsatisfactory, to be honest. I actually think that in the case of the show, Sheila's my favourite character as a whole. Because of the way that she was written. So yeah. And someone else who has contributed much to Sheila's life is Cook Jenkins. And we're going to hand over to her now for the method in the making. Over to you, Brenda. And yes, I've given her a name now, but I'll still call her Cook Jenkins. I am grieving as I have now lost Sheila. This is like Revenge of the Sith all over again. Instead, Anakin Skywalker is Sheila, and all of us are Obi-Wan Kenobi. She were meant to know someone in the army, not join them. But nevertheless, we shall never forget Sheila's contributions to the show's history over the years. From snitching and laughing at Hetty, to eventually supporting her in her darkest moments and making up. Aye, I am proud of Sheila. It's just a shame she's turned to the dark side of the Force. Oh well, hopefully she'll have her Return of the Jedi moment, when Matron Bottomley turns evil and then electrocutes Hetty, and then she throws her down a massive well or summit, but then makes the ultimate sacrifice. God, I love the Star Wars films. The first 6 of them, of course, because the other ones don't count. And don't even get me started on The Mandalorian and the rest of that shite. And by the way, if you went to see Revenge of the Sith in the cinema, you're still giving money to Disney to fund The Acolyte Season 2. And for all you Filoni faithfuls out there, no, he has not fixed Star Wars. He's destroyed it ever since Clone Wars were a thing. But that's enough of me digressing. I'm going back to my hard-working kitchen now. And thank you, Cook Jenkins. And that ends today's review. I'd like to thank you all very much for watching this video, and I will see you all later. Ta-ra!